Hi friends. So today maybe we could talk a little bit about it's not just the destination, it's also the journey, right? I think sometimes we can get either part of that confused. Just take one part. It's all about the destination and we miss so much along the journey. Oh, it's just all about the journey and to hell with the destination, right? Yeah, so no, it's we're Catholics, so it's both and. It's not either or. And I just kind of want to fold this maybe in the context of pilgrimage, and maybe we can look at Exodus. Not anything specific there, but just the whole book of Exodus. And true to its name, it's about an Exodus, right? An Exodus from Egypt. To the desert of Sinai, to the mountain, and to all the way to the promised land, and just holding there before going into the promised land, as God promised his people. Okay, so it's not just the destination, it's also the journey. Anybody like a cup of coffee? Yeah, I mean, a good cup of joe, right? I love it, with a little bit of creamer in it, and unfortunately, it has to be flavored creamer for me now. And the reason why is that I have 3 sisters, and every time they come over to the rectory, they're like, you don't have flavored creamer here. Okay, so then they go get the flavored creamer, and then they leave it here, and then I don't want to waste it, so I put it in my coffee, right? And now I'm addicted. I love flavored creamer in my coffee, like chocolate macchiato or whatever. I don't even know the names of them, right? But anyways, yeah. That's the journey, right? We get to, along the way of life, we get to enjoy a good cup of joe, or if your thing is herbal tea, we get to enjoy riding in a car with the windows down on a sunny day. We get to see a beautiful sunset along a beach. We get to climb a mountain and feel the shortness of breath in our lungs. We get to ski down that mountain. We get to hold a baby in our hands and just that baby just look at us and we look at that baby, and it's just that magical moment, right? Until the baby does what a baby does and poops his pants and off it goes to mom, right? Or if you're the mom, you're going to take care of that, or the dad. So all these experiences, they're all part of the journey, or not, is my point. All of these experiences can be used if we allow them somehow, and the whole mystery of who God is and who we are in our journey, which is mysterious to us from day to day. We don't know the future, for instance. God can use all that. We can allow God to use all that, and with God's grace, we can use all that, not just to get to the destination, which is heaven for us as Christians, but really to allow the journey to shape and mold and fold and make us into the people that are ready to go into heaven. Ready. Yes, through the grace of God. But we play a part too, and we have to be ready. So where's that in the scriptures? That it's both and that both are important. Well, I just mentioned it. It's in the book of Exodus, among many books in the Bible. And you know the story. I mean, the people of Israel found their way down. We learned this in the book of Genesis. Through Joseph, have found their way down to Egypt. And in the beginning, Pharaoh was friendly because Egypt was a place that welcomed Joseph, and Joseph rose in power, and he welcomed all of his brothers, and life was good until there was a new Pharaoh or new pharaohs. And it ended up that the Jews were slaves in Egypt, and it wasn't good. And so God calls Moses to bring him out of Egypt. And that is a journey in and of itself. It's a journey in many ways. It's a journey to get away from the gods of Egypt that the Jews were leaning towards. It's a journey to to be God's people again and worship the way God has commanded, and through a covenant relationship. It's a journey to get out of all of the labor, the intense labor of being a slave and having no freedoms, politically, socially, and so on. So many parts, many dimensions to that journey. And then, another journey comes along that has a different flavor to it, a different purpose to it. And that journey is to Sinai, right? It's to the mountain, and it's to the commandments. And it's even in that struggle where they're going back to the golden calf and wanting to worship the way they want to worship. It's a journey of patience and trust in the leaders that God provides for us. And then when that doesn't go very well and the people have abandoned God, God doesn't abandon them, but he does give them 40 years in the desert. And that 40 years in the desert teaches them many things. It's, again, another dimension of the journey, another part, another trek of that journey. And there they learn to become dependent upon God for their food, for their water, for everything. And that's hard, and they have some missteps along the way. And ultimately, they end up in the promised land. And the land of Canaan, what you and I now know to be Israel, right? Okay, yeah, so it's a journey. And in all of that, we see a foreshadowing of the Christian life. We see an archetype of the Christian life. We see an analog for it. It's not perfect, but when Christ comes along, he fulfills so much of that, and then he asks us to continue it now with his grace. So now we're on a different type of exodus. We're going to have those type of experiences where God calls us in our journey out of sin, out of slavery to sin, out of slavery to other people, and to their inventions, and to the ways that they're, trying to control us, right? I mean, we see that in the society we live in today, whether it's government or social opinions or it's education or it's healthcare or it's here, just sit down in front of a TV or device and be there for 4 hours, right? Binging. Don't tell me that that's not a type of control, right? And a lack of freedom and a type of slavery. It is, right? So we're going through all this all the time. But then there's going to be times where the journey or the trek of it changes, shifts, advances. And there's going to be where God says, okay, this is what you're dealing with. I'm going to give you my law. I'm going to give you the do's and the don'ts. And just like the Jews, we won't like that. But it is part of the journey. God showed us that in the archetype. God showed us that in Jesus in the fulfillment. Even Jesus himself gave a new law, a new law of love. And there were people that couldn't even follow that. They wanted to make their own versions of love. And that continues to this day. So God gives us direction. He gives us correction. God also gives us the promise along the way. And sometimes the promise needs a little motivation to keep to it. Meaning there's going to be experiences in life that call us to call out to Christ, to cry out to him, where we learn and relearn and learn in new ways our dependence upon him, our need for him, for the basics of life, let alone the basics for our spiritual relationship with him. And then we get to be ready. It took the Jews a lifetime for them to be ready to enter into the promised land. Guess what? For us, it will take a lifetime for us to be ready to enter into not a promised land of Israel, but the promised land that Israel was a symbol of, the promised land of heaven. And along the way, a lot of other really just good things. Because what I talked about, what we saw in the book of Exodus is, the exodus from slavery and sin, the need for correction in the law, and learning how to be dependent on God and trust in Him. That's all good, right? But along the way, we can have the both and. Okay, we can have our eyes on the destination, and the destination can make everything else in life meaningful and purposeful, and help us interpret and experience everything in life. The stuff where we do need that fraternal correction and that escape from sin and so on, but the stuff too where we get to enjoy a cold glass of water or a beer, or a nice cigar, or the love relationships between a husband and a wife, or back to holding that baby again, worshiping Him at Mass, singing praise to Him in songs that we have learned as a community, diving in a pool on a hot summer day, sitting under the shade, watching the first snowfall. We get all of that. And then all those things that are easy and are beautiful and attractive, just like the stuff that's hard, that stuff can facilitate the journey. That stuff can get us to our destination. That stuff can get us ready. When we're watching that snowfall and we praise God. When we're sitting underneath in some shade and we're just enjoying human life. Where we're watching a TV that just gives us a little bit of distraction from the difficulty of the day. Not 4 hours, but enough. And in all of that, we can thank God, we can praise God, we can know God and His beauty through art and through culture and through history and through human relationships. Both sides are part of the journey. Both sides are necessary. Both are the pilgrimage, and both can get us ready for the life in heaven. Here's the problem, and I'll end with this. Some of us get stuck on the journey, and we think life is all about the journey. And that's problematic in so many ways, right? Because we get attached to the things of the journey and we forget the destination. And then when life ends, we're not ready for the promised land. And we were the ones who had the power and the free will and the countless opportunities to be made ready and to get ourselves ready to get into heaven. But if we're not, we won't get in. And it won't be God who determines that. It'll be us who determine that. And that would just be the worst day ever and the worst eternity ever. So getting stuck on the journey and the stuff of the journey is problematic, but also getting just focusing on the destination and forgetting everything else along the way can also keep us from being ready, right? Because, for instance, in human relationships, so much in human relationships gets us ready for heaven, like the need to be forgiven and to forgive others, the need to be patient, the learning of how to be in community and be selfless. What do we think heaven is? Do we think heaven is just me and God? It's an eternity where we take care of one another and where we're not selfish. But all of our needs are being met because we work together in the grace of Jesus Christ, in the presence of God, of loving one another. And if we don't learn that here and now and experience that here and now, all the ups and downs, the goods and bads of human relationships, and this is one aspect of the journey, how do we ever expect to want to be in community forever with other human beings when we couldn't and we wouldn't be in community with one another here and now, like a worshiping community? Church and going to church is an essential part of getting ready for the church of heaven. Because that's what it is. It's a community of believers worshiping God forever. And everything that it takes to be a church, like hospitality, acceptance of one another, for all of eternity, forgiving one another, and so on. So the destination alone and living for that alone is not enough. No, we're Catholic. Always our tradition has been the both and. So it's both the journey and everything about the journey. Not just the good parts, but the bad parts. Bad parts, by that I mean the difficult parts that can be actually very good for us, getting us ready as a people and as a person, as a spouse, as a mom and a dad raising kids and helping us get our kids ready. When we don't avoid the darkness, we call it darkness, right? But in that darkness is the opportunity for salvation, because in that darkness is light. You know, we interpret it as darkness, but there's salvific moments, redemptive moments. Yeah, so it's good. It's a good and a bad, but it's also keeping our minds, our hearts, our lives, and our lifestyles bent on the destination. How many times did the hope of getting into the promised land get the Jewish people through yet another day? We're going to have seasons of our lives like that where we're just going to have to concentrate on heaven, because what's going on in our life right here and now is not easy, right? And the same goes when everything is going well and we become forgetful of heaven, because we think this is it right here, this moment, this job, this house, this relationship. No, it's both and. And that, my friends, is the pilgrimage. Until next time, friends.